Starving widow said, "Take me home," the cowboy answered. "I'll take you too." The wind carried the faint smell of earth and dry grass, and the faint chatter of a few townspeople drifted in the distance. Maria walked slowly, her feet heavy, her stomach emptier than it had been in days. She had not eaten much since her husband passed away. Life had changed so quickly, leaving her alone, tired and afraid. Each day was a struggle to find food and keep herself warm, and each night was lonelier than the last. She kept telling herself she would manage, she would survive, but her body and her heart were tired of the struggle. The town had always been a quiet place where everyone knew everyone else, but now, for Maria, even the familiar streets felt strange. Houses she had once walked past without a second thought now looked foreign, almost like they belonged to someone else. The laughter of children in the distance only reminded her of what she had lost. She wrapped her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders, feeling its worn fabric barely keeping out the evening chill. Her eyes searched the small market square as she passed the store windows, hoping to see something, anything, that could help her. But all she saw were bright lights reflecting off shelves full of goods she could not afford, reminding her of the emptiness in her own cupboard at home. Maria had been walking for hours, hoping someone might notice her condition and offer help, but the town was quiet. The shopkeepers were busy closing their stores, and the townspeople were already heading to their homes for dinner. She felt invisible, as if her pain and hunger did not matter to anyone. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked, and her stomach ached. She stopped near the old wooden fence at the edge of the market and sat down, her back leaning against the rough wood. The day had been long, and her body felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of her sadness along with her own exhaustion. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Her hands were rough and calloused from work she had done alone since her husband's passing. The thought of going back to her small, empty home made her heart sink. The walls of her house were still filled with memories, memories that were both comforting and painful. She missed the sound of her husband's voice, his laughter, the way he had always been able to make her feel safe. Now, the house was silent, echoing with the emptiness of loss. Maria's eyes wandered across the street to the small general store, the last place open before night fell completely. Inside, a few dim lamps cast light across the shelves, illuminating jars of preserved food, sacks of flour, and bottles of milk. Her stomach growled quietly and she swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in her throat. She wanted to ask for help, but the words caught in her throat. Pride and fear fought against her hunger, but she could not continue like this. She had to try. She stood up slowly, her legs trembling slightly, and walked toward the store. The wooden steps creaked under her weight as she stepped onto the porch. The shopkeeper looked up from his ledger and offered a small, polite smile. Maria's voice was barely above a whisper when she said, "Take me home." The words felt strange even as they left her lips, but they were all she could manage. She had no family left, no one to rely on, and the exhaustion in her body made it feel as though she could not go on another step alone. She hoped, somehow, that someone would understand. The shopkeeper hesitated. He was kind, but he was not sure what to do. He did not know where Maria lived, and he was not able to take her home himself. He glanced toward the edge of town, where the hills began, and he thought of Jack, the cowboy who lived nearby. Jack had always been helpful to people in need. Quiet and strong, he had a reputation for kindness, even though he rarely sought recognition for it. With a small nod, the shopkeeper said, "There's someone who might be able to help. He lives just past the fields near the river. His name is Jack. He's a good man." Maria nodded faintly, her energy barely enough to move. She did not know Jack personally, but the hope in the shopkeeper's voice was enough for her to keep going. She stepped off the porch and started walking toward the edge of town. Her steps were slow and unsteady, but the thought of finding someone who could help her gave her the tiniest spark of hope. The sky above had turned a soft orange, and the first stars were beginning to appear. She kept her eyes on the horizon, where the hills met the sky, thinking about the possibility of safety, warmth, and food. As she walked, memories of her past life kept coming back to her. Her husband's laughter, the small garden they had tended together, the evenings spent under the stars talking about their dreams. Those memories made her smile faintly, even through her exhaustion and pain. She remembered how he would always tell her that no matter what happened, she was strong enough to survive. She had tried to hold onto that strength, but the weight of recent days had made it almost impossible. Finally, as the last light of day faded into the gentle darkness of evening, Maria reached the edge of the open fields. The wind carried a cooler chill now, rustling the grass and whispering through the trees. She saw a figure in the distance, moving slowly along the path near the river. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing the typical rugged clothes of a cowboy. There was something comforting about his presence, a sense of quiet confidence and strength. She felt drawn toward him, unsure why, but hoping that he might be the help she desperately needed. Jack noticed her from a distance. He had been finishing up work on his small ranch, tending to the horses and making sure the barn was secure for the night. When he saw her walking slowly toward him, he felt a sense of concern. He could tell immediately that she was weak and weary, her body moving more from necessity than energy. Without hesitation, he walked toward her, his boots crunching softly against the dirt path. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, stopping a few feet away so as not to startle her. His voice was calm, steady, and kind, carrying the sense of someone who had faced many challenges and was willing to help those in need. Maria looked at him, her eyes tired but filled with a quiet desperation. She nodded faintly, unable to speak at first. Finally, she whispered, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm hungry and I'm alone." Jack's expression softened. He had seen hardship before, and he knew that sometimes words were not enough. People needed action, care, and kindness. He stepped a little closer and said, "Come with me. I'll take you home. You don't have to be alone tonight." For the first time in many days, Maria felt a sense of relief wash over her. She nodded again, this time with a faint, hopeful smile. She had found someone who would not turn her away, someone who would offer help without judgment. Together, they began walking slowly toward Jack's home near the river. The journey was quiet at first, filled only with the sounds of the evening, crickets, rustling leaves, and the soft flow of the river nearby. Maria's heart felt lighter with each step, though her body was still weak. She thought about the possibility of food, warmth, and rest, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to hope. As they walked, Jack occasionally glanced at her, making sure she was keeping up. He did not rush her, nor did he speak too much, understanding that sometimes silence was comforting. Maria, in turn, began to feel a sense of trust growing within her, a trust that perhaps not all people would turn their backs on her in times of need. The sun had fully set now, and the sky was a deep shade of purple, dotted with stars that seemed to shine just for them. By the time they reached the small cabin near the river, Maria was exhausted but grateful. Jack opened the door and invited her inside, offering a place to sit and rest. He assured her that she could stay as long as she needed and that she would not be alone. For the first time since her husband's passing, Maria felt safe. She knew that the road ahead would still be difficult, but for tonight, she had found shelter, kindness, and the possibility of a new beginning. And as she sat by the warm fire that Jack had built, listening to the soft crackle of the flames, Maria realized that sometimes hope comes in the form of a stranger willing to lend a hand. She closed her eyes briefly, letting herself rest, knowing that tomorrow was a new day, and for the first time in a long while, she believed that she could face it. The night settled softly over the small cabin by the river. The gentle sound of water flowing nearby mixed with the whispering of the wind through the trees, creating a peaceful melody that made the evening feel calm and safe. Maria sat on a wooden chair, her thin shawl still wrapped around her shoulders, as she watched Jack moving quietly around the cabin. He was arranging a few simple items on the shelves, lighting a small lamp, and preparing a place for her to rest. She had never met anyone so calm, so steady, and yet so strong. There was a quiet kindness in him that made her feel less alone in the world. Jack noticed Maria's tired gaze and smiled gently. "You must be hungry," he said, his voice warm but soft, careful not to startle her. "I'll make something for you. Don't worry about a thing tonight." Maria nodded silently, her throat too tight with emotion to speak. She had not had a proper meal in days, and the smell of food being prepared filled the cabin in a way that seemed almost magical. It was a reminder of normal life, of the world she had once known before loss and struggle had taken hold of her days. Jack began to cook a simple meal. He took out fresh bread, eggs, and some milk he had saved from the morning. The cabin was small, but it was tidy and full of warmth, not just from the fire, but from the sense of home that Jack had created with his own hands. As he worked, Maria watched quietly. She could see the care with which he handled everything, the way he broke the eggs gently, the way he arranged the bread on a small plate. It was comforting to see someone move through their world with such thoughtfulness, especially when her own life had felt so chaotic and lonely. Finally, Jack set a small plate of food in front of Maria. The aroma of the warm bread and eggs made her stomach rumble again, but now with anticipation rather than pain. She hesitated for a moment, feeling a mix of gratitude and awkwardness. "I thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but sincere. Jack simply nodded, giving her a reassuring smile. "Eat. You need your strength. Tomorrow is a new day, and we'll take it one step at a time." As Maria began to eat, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Each bite brought her more energy, more hope, and more courage. She realized how long it had been since she had felt safe enough to eat without fear or shame. Jack watched her quietly, giving her space, but always close enough to ensure she was comfortable. There was a gentle rhythm to their silence, a quiet understanding that sometimes words were not necessary to show care. After the meal, Jack invited Maria to sit closer to the fire. He handed her a small blanket, which she accepted gratefully. The flames danced in her eyes, and she felt a warmth that had little to do with the fire itself. It was the warmth of being seen, of being cared for, of finding a place where she belonged, even if just for the night. She looked at Jack, noticing the lines on his face from years of hard work, the strength in his hands from long days on the ranch, and yet the softness in his eyes as he watched over her. Maria found herself telling him bits of her story, beginning with small details she had shared with no one. She spoke of her husband, the life they had built together, and the sudden emptiness that had taken over her days. Her voice trembled at times, but Jack listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging. He understood that sometimes people needed to speak to release the weight they carried. And as she spoke, Maria felt the tightness in her chest ease slightly, as if sharing her pain had given it less power over her. Jack responded gently, not with advice, but with understanding. "It's hard to lose someone you love," he said softly. "And it's even harder when you have to face the world alone. But you're not alone now, not tonight and not here. You have a place to rest, and we'll figure out the rest together." His words were simple, but they carried a reassurance that Maria had not felt in a long time. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that maybe life could be good again, even if it would take time. The night passed slowly but peacefully. Maria lay on a small cot Jack had prepared, the blanket wrapped tightly around her. Outside, the stars shone brightly, and the gentle sound of the river lulled her into a calm sleep. She dreamed not of the past or her loss, but of small joys, flowers blooming in a garden, laughter by the river, and the quiet companionship of someone who cared. Jack, meanwhile, stayed awake longer, tending to the fire and listening to the night. He thought about Maria's story, about the struggles she had faced, and about how much courage it must have taken for her to reach out for help. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the small cabin window, casting a warm glow over the wooden walls. Birds chirped outside, and the fresh smell of dew on the grass filled the air. Maria woke feeling stronger than she had in days. Her body still ached from hunger and exhaustion, but there was a spark of energy she had not felt in weeks. She sat up slowly, stretching and taking in her surroundings. The cabin felt safe, warm, and alive, a stark contrast to the cold, empty house she had left behind. Jack was already outside, tending to a small garden near the cabin. He noticed Maria standing at the doorway and waved. "Good morning," he called, his voice carrying across the yard. Maria smiled faintly, feeling a small happiness bloom in her chest. She stepped outside, the morning air crisp against her skin. She realized how much she had missed simple things, the feeling of the sun on her face, the sound of birds in the morning, the smell of fresh grass. For so long, her life had been filled with struggle and worry that she had forgotten these small joys. Together, Jack and Maria spent the morning preparing a simple breakfast. Jack had eggs, fresh bread, and fruit, and he encouraged Maria to eat as much as she needed. She did, feeling her body regain strength with every bite. As they worked side by side, Jack shared stories of the ranch, of the animals he cared for, and of the quiet life he had built for himself. Maria listened intently, fascinated by his experiences and the calm confidence with which he faced each day. She began to feel a sense of belonging, a feeling that had been absent for too long. After breakfast, they took a walk around the property. The land was small but fertile, with a few animals grazing in the pasture and a river running gently along one side. Jack pointed out areas where he had planted vegetables, where he kept the chickens, and where he had built a small orchard. Maria felt a sense of awe at the work he had done alone. Each detail showed care, patience, and dedication, qualities she admired deeply. As they walked, Jack asked her questions, not intrusive but thoughtful, giving her space to share her thoughts if she wished. Maria began to speak more freely, telling him about her past life in the town, the struggles she had faced since becoming a widow, and her fears for the future. Jack listened carefully, never rushing her or dismissing her feelings. His presence was steady, like the river that ran past his cabin, always there, calm and supportive. Maria realized that for the first time in a long while, she felt safe enough to dream again. She could imagine a life where she was not constantly worried, a life where she could laugh, work, and rest without fear. As the day went on, Jack and Maria worked together on small tasks around the property. They repaired fences, tended to the garden, and fed the animals. Each activity brought a sense of purpose to Maria's day. She had not realized how much she had missed having work to do, responsibilities that mattered, and the satisfaction of seeing results from her efforts. Jack encouraged her gently, praising her efforts without making her feel self-conscious. It was the first time in weeks that Maria felt pride in something again. By evening, the cabin was quiet once more. Maria sat by the fire, reflecting on the day. She thought about the kindness Jack had shown her, the patience he had with her, and the way he had made her feel safe. She realized that life had a way of surprising people, even when it seemed impossible. From the depths of her despair, a small glimmer of hope had emerged. She understood that healing would take time, but for the first time in a long while she believed it was possible. Jack, noticing her quiet reflection, sat beside her. "You don't have to rush," he said softly. "We'll take it one day at a time. You're not alone anymore. And we'll face whatever comes together." Maria looked at him and smiled faintly, feeling the weight of her worries lighten just a little. She realized that sometimes, the right person at the right time could change everything, not by grand gestures, but by steady kindness and unwavering support. As the stars appeared once again in the night sky, Maria felt a quiet peace settle over her. She had arrived at a place of safety, comfort, and hope. And though the road ahead was still uncertain, she knew she had someone walking beside her, someone who believed in her, cared for her, and would help her find her strength again. For the first time in a long while, Maria allowed herself to hope for a future filled with warmth, companionship, and the possibility of new beginnings. The morning sun poured gently over the small cabin, turning the river into a ribbon of sparkling light. Maria awoke feeling a quiet strength she hadn't felt in weeks. Her body was still recovering from hunger and exhaustion, but her spirit felt lighter. The previous days had been difficult, but for the first time, she could see a small glimmer of hope in her future. She stretched slowly, enjoying the warmth of the sun on her face and the soft sounds of nature surrounding the cabin. Birds chirped happily in the trees, and the wind carried the faint scent of grass and river water. Jack was already outside, tending to the garden. He noticed Maria watching him from the doorway and gave her a small nod and smile. "Good morning," he said. "The animals are fed and the fire is still warm. How did you sleep?" Maria smiled faintly, feeling her chest relax at his calm voice. "I slept well," she replied softly. "Thank you for everything." Jack only nodded, brushing dirt off his hands. He did not need to respond with words. His quiet presence said more than any sentence could. After a simple breakfast of eggs, bread, and fresh milk, Jack suggested they take a walk along the river and then return to do some work around the cabin. Maria agreed, feeling eager to stretch her legs and breathe in the fresh morning air. The two walked slowly, enjoying the peaceful sounds of the countryside. The river flowed gently beside them, and the sun sparkled on the water. Maria noticed flowers growing along the riverbank, and she bent down to touch the petals. "They're beautiful," she said softly, almost to herself. Jack looked at her with a gentle smile. "It's the little things that make life special," he said. As they walked, Jack began to tell her stories of the ranch, of the animals he cared for, and of the life he had built for himself. He spoke of the challenges he faced when he first moved to this area alone, the long days of hard work, and the quiet moments of satisfaction that came from seeing the fruits of his labor. Maria listened intently, fascinated by his stories. She realized that life could be harsh and demanding, but there was also beauty, reward, and peace if one worked patiently and lived with care. Maria began to open up about her own life. She spoke softly of the life she had shared with her husband, the struggles she faced after his passing, and her fears about the future. Her voice trembled at times, but Jack listened patiently, never interrupting or judging. He understood that she needed to share her feelings, to unburden herself after so much loss and loneliness. Each word she spoke seemed to lighten her heart, and she felt a sense of trust growing between them. She realized that she had not felt understood in a long time, and this small connection brought her comfort. After their walk, they returned to the cabin to work on small projects. Jack suggested they repair a broken fence that had been damaged in a recent storm. Maria agreed, eager to help. Together, they carried wooden planks, hammered nails, and mended the fence with steady hands. Jack guided her carefully, showing her how to use the tools safely and praising her efforts without making her feel self-conscious. Maria felt a sense of accomplishment with each nail she hammered, each plank she positioned correctly. For the first time in weeks, she felt proud of her work, proud of her ability to contribute and be useful. While working, Jack shared more about the animals he cared for. He explained how each animal had its own personality, its own needs, and how he learned to understand them over time. Maria was fascinated by his stories and began to see a connection between the patience he showed with the animals and the patience he now showed with her. It struck her that kindness and care were not always loud or dramatic. They could be quiet, consistent, and deeply meaningful. She began to appreciate the small acts of support he offered daily, realizing that these were the gestures that truly mattered. As the day passed, They took breaks under the shade of an old oak tree near the river. Maria drank from a canteen Jack carried, and they shared simple conversation about ordinary things, the weather, the changing seasons, and the beauty of the countryside. These small moments of normalcy were precious to Maria. She realized that she had been so focused on survival that she had forgotten how to enjoy life, how to notice the gentle details that made each day meaningful. Jack's presence reminded her of the quiet joys that still existed in the world. In the afternoon, they tended to the small garden near the cabin. Jack showed Maria how to plant vegetables, water them, and care for the soil. She listened carefully and followed his instructions, feeling a sense of satisfaction as she saw the garden beginning to thrive. Jack praised her efforts, and she felt her confidence grow. Each successful task, no matter how small, reminded her that she was capable and strong. She began to understand that rebuilding her life would take time, patience, and consistent effort, but that it was possible. After finishing their work, Jack suggested they rest by the river. They sat on the grassy bank, watching the water flow gently. Maria dipped her fingers into the cool stream and felt the tension of the day leave her body. Jack remained quietly beside her, his presence calm and reassuring. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt a sense of peace she hadn't thought possible. She realized that life, even after loss, could still hold beauty, friendship, and hope. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the river, Jack and Maria returned to the cabin. Jack started preparing dinner while Maria sat near the fire, feeling the warmth seep into her tired muscles. The aroma of the cooking filled the cabin, creating a comforting atmosphere. Maria reflected on the day, realizing how much she had already learned, grown, and healed in a short time. She felt gratitude for Jack's patience, his quiet guidance, and the steady presence that had helped her regain confidence in herself. During dinner, they shared stories of simpler joys, childhood memories, favorite places, and small accomplishments. Maria laughed softly at some of Jack's stories, realizing how much she had missed laughter in her life. Jack listened with a kind smile, appreciating her openness and her ability to find joy even after experiencing hardship. The meal, simple as it was, became a shared moment of connection, reinforcing the bond that had begun to grow between them. After dinner, they cleaned the cabin together. Maria felt a sense of pride as she organized the small space, swept the floors, and tidied the shelves. She noticed how small acts of care could create comfort and peace, and how sharing these tasks with someone else could deepen a connection. Jack watched her quietly, offering gentle guidance when needed, but mostly allowing her space to take the lead. Maria realized that she had begun to feel at home, not just in the cabin, but in the presence of someone who truly cared. As night fell, they sat together by the fire. The stars shone brightly overhead, and the river reflected the soft light of the moon. Maria felt a calmness she had not experienced in a long time. She realized that trust and friendship were slowly building between her and Jack. The day had been filled with work, learning, laughter, and quiet reflection. Each moment had strengthened her hope, her sense of self-worth, and her belief that life could be good again. Jack spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret with the night itself. "It's not easy to start over," he said, "but with patience, care, and trust, anything is possible. You've taken the first steps, and that's the hardest part." Maria nodded, feeling the truth of his words deep in her heart. She understood that the journey ahead would not be simple, but she felt ready to face it, supported by the steady presence of someone who cared deeply for her well-being. As Maria lay down on the cot Jack had prepared, she reflected on the day with a quiet smile. She had learned that life could still hold moments of joy and kindness, even in the aftermath of loss. She realized that hope could grow slowly, nurtured by small gestures, patience, and the courage to trust again. And as the fire burned softly beside her, she drifted into a calm sleep, knowing that the journey ahead, though uncertain, was one she would no longer face alone. The following morning, the sunlight spilled gently over the small cabin and the river beyond. Maria awoke feeling refreshed, as if the warmth of the sun had reached into the depths of her spirit and stirred something she had thought long gone. She stretched slowly, her muscles still tender from the previous day's work, but a quiet strength had begun to grow within her. Life felt lighter, and for the first time in weeks, she truly looked forward to the day ahead. She noticed Jack was already outside, tending to the garden as he had done so many mornings before. "Good morning," he called softly, pausing to brush a hand over his face. "Did you sleep well?" Maria smiled faintly, grateful for the gentle concern in his voice. "Yes," she replied, "better than I have in a long time." Jack nodded and without another word continued his work. Maria watched him for a moment, admiring his quiet focus, the careful way he moved among the plants, tending to each with patience and care. It was remarkable, she realized, how someone could be so strong, yet so gentle at the same time. After a simple breakfast, Jack suggested they continue some of the work around the cabin. Maria agreed, eager to be helpful and to learn more about the life he had built for himself. They began with the animals, feeding the chickens and collecting eggs. Jack taught Maria how to handle the animals carefully, explaining their behaviors and needs. She listened closely, feeling a sense of pride as she followed his instructions correctly. Each task was small, but each success gave her confidence and a sense of accomplishment she had not felt in a long time. Once the animals were fed, they turned to the garden. Jack showed her how to water the plants evenly, remove weeds, and check the soil for signs of dryness or disease. Maria was amazed at how much care and attention was needed to help the garden thrive. As she worked, she realized that this kind of patience, this willingness to care for something slowly and steadily, was a lesson for life itself. Jack worked alongside her, offering guidance and encouragement without ever making her feel rushed or incapable. While taking a short break under the shade of a large oak tree, Maria reflected on her journey. She remembered the lonely streets of the town, the days when hunger and grief had weighed heavily on her shoulders. Now, sitting beside the flowing river, she felt a sense of peace she had not known in months. Jack handed her a canteen of water, and their fingers brushed briefly. Maria noticed the warmth in that small gesture, the quiet acknowledgement of connection and care. She realized that for the first time since her husband had passed, she was beginning to feel that life could be meaningful again. After their break, Jack suggested they repair the barn roof, which had suffered minor damage during a recent storm. Maria felt nervous at first, having never done such work before, but Jack guided her patiently, showing her how to climb safely, hold tools correctly, and work carefully. She began to feel a sense of trust in herself as well as in Jack. With every nail she hammered and every plank she positioned, her confidence grew. She realized that life was not about grand gestures or sudden changes. It was about consistent effort, care, and patience, and about taking small steps forward even when the path seemed uncertain. By late afternoon, the work was done. The cabin, the garden, and the animals were all in better condition, thanks to their shared effort. Maria felt a deep sense of satisfaction and pride. Jack smiled at her, noticing the quiet glow of accomplishment on her face. "You did well today," he said softly. "You're stronger than you know, and you've already come a long way." Maria felt a warmth spread through her chest. His words were not only kind, but they were truthful. She realized that she had begun to regain not only her strength, but also her confidence in herself. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues over the river and cabin, Jack suggested they sit outside and rest. They carried a couple of chairs to the edge of the riverbank and sat in silence for a few moments, listening to the gentle flow of water. Maria dipped her hand into the cool stream, feeling the soothing sensation of the water running over her fingers. Jack watched her quietly, offering his presence as a silent support. There was no rush, no need to speak. The peace of the moment was enough. After a while, Maria began to speak, sharing thoughts and feelings she had not expressed before. She spoke of her fears for the future, her memories of her husband, and the challenges she had faced alone. Jack listened with patience, never interrupting, never judging. His calm presence allowed her to open her heart fully, and she felt lighter with every word. Maria realized that the act of sharing, of being truly heard, was healing in itself. She had not felt this kind of connection in a long time, and it filled her with quiet gratitude. As darkness fell, Jack invited her inside to prepare dinner. The cabin filled with the comforting aroma of cooked vegetables, bread, and warm stew. Maria helped set the table, enjoying the simplicity and normalcy of the task. They ate together, sharing quiet conversation and occasional laughter. Maria found herself smiling more easily than she had in months. She realized that life, even after great loss, could still contain moments of joy and contentment. It was a feeling she had long forgotten, but now began to treasure deeply. After dinner, they cleaned the cabin together. Jack showed Maria how to sweep the floors efficiently, organize the shelves, and tidy the small space so that it felt welcoming and peaceful. Maria felt a quiet satisfaction as she worked, knowing that she was contributing to a home that was safe and comfortable for both of them. Jack's guidance was gentle and encouraging, allowing her to feel capable and appreciated. She realized that even simple tasks, when shared with someone who cares, could bring a sense of accomplishment and connection. Later, as they sat together by the fire, Maria reflected on the journey she had taken in just a few short days. From the lonely streets of the town to the safety and warmth of Jack's cabin, she had come a long way. She realized that trust and companionship could slowly heal even the deepest wounds, and that hope could grow in the most unexpected places. She looked at Jack, noticing the quiet strength in his eyes, the gentle patience in his manner, and the steady kindness that had guided her back to herself. Jack spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret. "Life isn't always easy," he said. "But with care, patience, and the willingness to trust again, it's possible to find happiness. You've already taken the hardest steps, and I see how strong you are." Maria felt a quiet tear slip down her cheek, not of sadness but of gratitude. She realized that she had found not just safety and food, but also guidance, understanding, and the possibility of a new beginning. As the fire crackled and the stars appeared in the night sky, Maria felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that challenges still lay ahead, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. Jack's steady presence had shown her that even after loss, life could hold warmth, connection, and hope. She allowed herself to imagine a future filled with small joys, laughter, and shared moments, moments that would strengthen her heart and spirit each day. That night, Maria lay down on her cot feeling a quiet sense of contentment. She had learned that life could be rebuilt, not through grand gestures or sudden changes, but through small, consistent acts of care, patience, and trust. She realized that healing was a journey, and that having someone walk beside her made the path easier and more hopeful. As she drifted into sleep, she felt ready for the days ahead, confident that she could face the challenges and joys that awaited her with courage and grace. The morning sun rose softly over the cabin, painting the river in shades of gold and silver. Maria awoke with a quiet sense of anticipation. Over the past days, she had grown stronger, both in body and spirit. Her hands no longer trembled from weakness, and her heart no longer felt heavy with despair. She had learned to take each day as it came, finding small joys in simple tasks, in the beauty of nature, and in the steady presence of Jack, who had become a guiding light in her life. She rose from her cot and stretched, feeling energy returning to her body. The cabin smelled faintly of fresh bread and the warm stew Jack had prepared earlier. Birds sang in the trees outside, and the wind carried the subtle fragrance of wildflowers from the riverbank. For the first time in months, Maria felt a sense of belonging, a feeling that went beyond shelter or food. It was a deep sense of connection, a quiet comfort that came from knowing that someone cared for her and would be there through the challenges ahead. Jack appeared at the doorway with a warm smile. "Good morning," he said softly. "I thought we could check on the animals first and then tend to the orchard." Maria nodded, feeling a sense of purpose as she followed him outside. The orchard was small but thriving, filled with apple and pear trees that Jack had nurtured for years. He showed Maria how to inspect the trees for signs of disease, how to prune the branches carefully, and how to water the young saplings. She listened attentively, impressed by the patience and care required for such work. With each task, she felt herself becoming more confident, more capable, and more connected to the land around her. While they worked, Maria spoke more freely about her hopes for the future. She talked about her desire to regain independence, to learn skills that could help her survive and thrive, and to find joy in life again. Jack listened with patience and understanding, offering gentle encouragement without judgment. "You're already stronger than you think," he said. "Each day you grow more capable. Don't forget that progress is measured in small steps, not giant leaps." Maria felt her heart lift at his words. For so long, she had believed that she was alone and incapable, but Jack's quiet guidance had helped her see her own strength. After their morning work, they returned to the cabin for a simple breakfast. Maria felt a warm satisfaction as she helped set the table and prepare the meal. Eating together had become more than just nourishment. It was a moment of connection, a shared ritual that strengthened their bond. They laughed quietly at small jokes and shared stories of their pasts. Maria realized that life could still hold moments of happiness and lightness, even after great loss. She cherished these moments deeply, recognizing their power to heal the heart. The afternoon was spent tending to the animals. Jack taught Maria how to care for the chickens, goats, and a few horses that roamed near the cabin. She learned how to feed them properly, clean their pens, and notice subtle signs of illness or discomfort. Each animal seemed to respond to her growing confidence and gentle touch. Maria felt a deep sense of pride as she worked, realizing that her efforts contributed to the well-being of these creatures. It was a tangible reminder that she was capable of making a difference and that her presence mattered. As the day progressed, Jack suggested they take a walk along the riverbank. Maria agreed eagerly, feeling the need for fresh air and quiet reflection. The river glistened under the sunlight, and the gentle sound of flowing water created a calming rhythm. They walked side by side, sometimes speaking softly, sometimes enjoying the peaceful silence together. Maria noticed how much she had changed in a short time. Her steps were steadier, her mind clearer, and her heart lighter. She realized that healing was not about forgetting the past, but about learning to live fully in the present while carrying the lessons of yesterday. Jack shared stories from his own past as they walked. He spoke of the hardships he had faced, the lessons he had learned, and the importance of resilience, patience, and kindness. Maria listened attentively, absorbing not only the practical advice, but also the wisdom that came from years of experience. She realized that life was full of challenges, but it was also full of opportunities for growth, joy, and connection. The bond between them grew stronger with each shared story, each quiet moment, and each task completed together. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow across the river, Jack and Maria returned to the cabin. They prepared a simple dinner together, enjoying the process as much as the meal itself. Maria felt a quiet satisfaction in the rhythm of chopping vegetables, stirring the stew, and setting the table. It was a reminder that life's simple tasks could hold meaning when done with care and shared with someone else. Jack praised her efforts, and Maria felt a deep sense of pride and belonging. After dinner, they sat together by the fire. The cabin was warm and cozy, filled with the soft glow of the flames. Outside, the stars began to twinkle, and the river reflected the gentle light of the moon. Maria felt a sense of peace settle over her. She thought about the journey she had taken, from the lonely streets of the town to the safety, warmth, and companionship she had found with Jack. She realized that hope could grow even in the darkest times, nurtured by patience, trust, and kindness. Jack spoke softly, his voice carrying a quiet wisdom. "You've come a long way," he said. "You've faced hardship and fear, and yet here you are, stronger, wiser, and ready for what comes next. Life is not always easy, but with care and perseverance it can be beautiful." Maria felt tears well in her eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude and relief. She realized that she had not only survived her hardships but had begun to thrive, thanks in part to Jack's steady support and the trust she had placed in him. As the night deepened, Maria reflected on what she had learned. She had discovered her own strength, the importance of patience and persistence, and the healing power of human connection. She understood that life would always bring challenges, but that facing them with courage, hope, and support made all the difference. Jack's presence had been a guiding light, helping her navigate her fears and rebuild her life piece by piece. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for his kindness, patience, and unwavering support. The following days continued in much the same way. Maria and Jack worked side by side, tending to the cabin, garden, orchard, and animals. Each day brought small victories, quiet moments of joy, and opportunities to learn and grow. Maria's confidence grew steadily, and she began to imagine a future filled with possibilities. She realized that she had found more than shelter and food. She had found friendship, trust, and the foundation of a life she could build again. One evening, as they watched the sunset over the river, Maria spoke softly. "I never thought I would feel this way again," she said. "I thought I was lost forever, alone in the world. But now I feel like there's hope, like life can be good again." Jack smiled, his eyes warm and kind. "Life always has a way of surprising us," he replied. "Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the people we meet can change everything. You've taken the steps to heal, and that makes all the difference." Maria felt a quiet joy rise within her. She realized that the journey had not been easy, but it had been worth every step. She had learned to trust, to hope, and to find strength within herself. She had learned that kindness, patience, and steady support could rebuild even the most broken spirits. And she had discovered that even after great loss, life could offer new beginnings, happiness, and connection. As the stars twinkled above and the river flowed gently by, Maria felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that challenges would still come, but she was no longer afraid. She had found strength in herself, guidance and support in Jack, and the courage to embrace a future filled with possibility. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly alive, hopeful and ready for whatever life might bring next. That night, as Maria lay on her cot beside the warm fire, she reflected on how far she had come. From the lonely streets of the town, the pain of loss and the hunger that had driven her forward, she had arrived at a place of safety, hope, and companionship. She realized that her journey had taught her resilience, patience, and the power of connection. And as she drifted into sleep, she felt a quiet excitement for the days to come, knowing that she would face them not alone, but with someone who cared deeply for her and believed in her strength. Life, she understood now, was not about the hardships alone, nor the losses endured. It was about the small moments of kindness, the steady acts of care, and the courage to keep moving forward. Maria had found all of these, and in doing so had found herself again. She had learned that even after great suffering, love, trust, and hope could grow in the most unexpected places. And with that understanding, she closed her eyes, ready to embrace each new day with courage, joy, and a heart open to life's possibilities.